Jordan Nielsen with Perpetua Resources. I'm the infrastructure projects manager, which entails the burnt log access road, the transmission line, and then intersection improvements along Highway 55, as well as some of the off-site buildings, as for example, the Stibnite logistics facility and the maintenance facility up near Landmark. And so we'll really be touching on all those topics here today. For those of you that are not familiar with our project, it is about 37 miles, air miles east of McCall, Idaho, which is about 100 miles north of Boise. There's really 3 existing routes into site. First one's the Lick Creek route, which is from McCall to Yellow Pine and then into Stibnite. That route is about 67 miles. It's a really beautiful drive. The other routes originate out of Cascade, and they take Warm Lake Road towards Warm Lake. One route goes north on South Fork Road before getting meeting up with the Lick Creek Road and then heading east to Yellow Pine. The other one continues past Warm Lake over Warm Lake Summit into Landmark, and then north along Johnson Creek. And then from Yellow Pine, same way, just head east on Stibnite Road, about 14 miles into the Stibnite Gold Project. Next slide, Shelley. All right, so with transportation, we understand that, there's concern and that, that our traffic will have impacts on the existing roadway system. So we try to locate as many administrative jobs offsite as possible by putting those along Warm Lake Road at the Stibnite Gold Logistics Facility in Scott Valley. It's about 8 miles east of the intersection of State Highway 55 and Warm Lake Road. We've also proposed to concentrate the traffic between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Anybody that knows Highway 55, it's quite busy from Friday, especially Friday night and Sunday evening. So we want to avoid our traffic impacts impacting others. Another key component is that we plan to bus our workforce from the logistics facility in Scott Valley up to the site. And that would probably be about 90% of the workforce. There would be some ancillary, pickup trucks that would be heading back and forth. One of the key components of having the Scott Valley logistics facility is it allows us to sort of aggregate a lot of our loads at the laydown yard there and go up and try to minimize the amount of trucks going back and forth. And then it allows us to send pilot vehicles up with any sensitive loads, fuel loads and others. One of the key components of the original plan of restoration and operations for traffic heading north or coming through the McCall area is that we wanted to avoid downtown McCall. It's a tight corridor, lots of tourism. So what we had proposed is using what it's commonly known as sort of the bypass by utilizing what's called Dinehard and Boydston lanes to bypass downtown McCall. And with that, we've proposed to upgrade the intersections in McCall at Dinehard and 55, and then also at Boydston and 55. And because we have a pretty good impact on the Warm Lake intersection, we've also proposed to upgrade those as well, or that intersection as well. And I'll get to these and kind of what we're proposing for those 3 intersections here at a later time. So early on, we did a traffic impact study. It was recommended by Idaho Transportation Department that we do a traffic impact study. We reached out to HDR, our traffic engineer, back in 2017, and utilizing our proposed numbers, traffic volumes at that point in time, they came up with some recommendations for intersection improvements. And they looked at 5 intersections. They looked as far south as the Banks and Banks-Loman Road and State Highway 55, which a lot of people know is a pretty congested intersection. We also looked at the Warm Lake 55 intersection, the McCall intersections at Dinehard and Boydston, and then also US 95 and Highway 55 in New Meadows. They made several recommendations and ITD reviewed their report and basically said that the Banks, Loman, and 55 intersection, as well as the State Highway 55 and US 95 intersections, do not require any mitigation, that our impacts were so low, and the fact that we are proposing to, concentrate our traffic outside of the busy windows didn't necessitate the need for intersection improvements there. We've also revised this impact study as of last summer, based off of some revised traffic numbers. And this next table, I think, yeah, it'll illustrate that. But basically, the recommendations that ITD recommended for us were that at Highway 55, they would like us to add some turn lanes coming off of 55 onto Warm Lake Road. They also wanted us to evaluate the turning radius of a WB67 tractor trailer, which are similar to the tractor trailers that we're proposing to move supplies to site. Very similar to Dinehard Lane. For those of you that know that intersection, it's not designed real well. There's a funky skew from the east leg to the west leg, and it's fairly tight on that southwest and northwest corners near the airport. What ITD had recommended is that we add more turning lane storage, and that we also pull back the southwest corner of that intersection towards the airport. And again, I'll get into more details here in just a minute. Similarly with Boydston, got to look at the WB67 tractor trailer turning radius to make sure that they can get through there safely without impacting other vehicles. And yeah, and that's about it. Next slide, please. All right, so these are our 2020 revised traffic volumes. What we did is we tried to look at kind of a worst case scenario of, if all of our operational vehicles, even including light duty vehicles for, people that are going to the logistics facility to catch buses and then on to the site. If everybody drove by themselves to get there, coming from the south and coming from the north on Highway 55. And what we saw and then we projected it out into 2025 during operations, taking the background data that's available right now and adding about, I think it was a 3% per year increase in traffic volumes. And what we see is that our operational traffic going north out of Warm Lake or coming from either one is about a 1.3% increase, or our volume makes up 1.3% of the total vehicles. Similarly, from the south, about 2%, 2.7%. Where you'd expect to see the biggest impact is where they all come together on Warm Lake Road. And this really only affects that segment between the intersection and the logistics facility. The percentage drops to below 5%. Because we're getting everybody in buses, we're aggregating all of our hauls, and then from the logistics facility to site. Next slide, please, Shelley. All right, so here we go, touching on intersection improvements. So first one being the Warm Lake Road and State Highway 55 intersection. This is a very busy figure, but the gist of it is that we are adding turn lanes. So if you're coming out of Cascade heading north towards Warm Lake Road, we're going to put in a deceleration and a right-hand turn lane for vehicles turning onto Warm Lake Road. Similarly, traffic heading south from McCall towards Cascade, there will be a deceleration left-hand turn lane onto Warm Lake Road. And if you're coming off Warm Lake Road towards Cascade, there will be an acceleration and merge lane into southbound traffic. In order to accommodate that so traffic doesn't get stuffed up, is we'll add a through lane west of the intersection so that traffic heading south can continue without being impeded. next intersection, please. Okay, so this is just the yellow line signifies the McCall bypass. McCall is to the north where the lake is. This is, and where the line starts to the east is where the airport is, the northern extent of the airport. That is the beginning of Dinehard Lane. And where it goes past the lagoons and heads north, that turns into Boydston Avenue. So I'm sorry. And so we're proposing intersection improvements at either end of those yellow lines. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit skewed, but this is Dinehard Lane and Highway 55. To the left is north, to the right is south. So what, like I said before, is where we've got the turning lanes heading north and west. We'll extend our queue to account for more vehicles coming that direction. All it is really restriping the area. The volume or the length and the width is already there. But where the biggest impact is the southwest corner where the airport is. In order to allow for our WB67 tractor trailers to move through the intersection, which there's already these type of vehicles coming through here with the logging trucks. And if anybody's been in this area, it's a little tight when they're coming through there. So we got to pull back that southwest corner. We're going to keep that beautification project that the city of McCall did years ago. Just need to move it out of the way. And we're going to add a right-hand turn lane for vehicles that are coming east on Dinehard, approaching the intersection, turning south or right towards Cascade. All right, next slide. Boydston, this is Boydston, which is just west of McCall towards Brundage or New Meadows. This one didn't take a whole lot. It's a pretty good intersection as is. We do want to add if you're traveling out of McCall to the west and you want to be and you're heading towards Brundage or New Meadows, we're going to add a left or deceleration lane onto Boydston Avenue and a through path to continue on towards New Meadows. Takes a little bit of rejigging of the sort of the geometry of the intersection, but very little. The majority of that would be to the north, where we have to add a little bit more fill to widen the road. Next slide, please. Okay, touch on burnt log route now. All right, so the burnt log route as is in what was in the alternative to the draft EIS. There's been a couple iterations of this, but what our preference is alternative 2. With that route, it's going to be about 37 miles long. 23 miles of it will be upgraded portions of the road. So you can see to the south, to the lower extent of the figure is Landmark. From Landmark to about, you'll see where you've got black overlaying red. That is the existing portion of the burnt log road. There will be a pioneered section between the end of that and the existing Meadow Creek Lookout Road. We'll follow the Meadow Creek Lookout Road for, I think, about 1.5 miles, and then diverge and head north towards Stibnite Project. That portion will also be pioneered. All right, next slide. So there's many advantages that we feel that the burnt log route has over what's called the Yellow Pine route, which is the Johnson Creek to Stibnite Road alternative. I think it's alternative 4 in the draft EIS. Kind of chief among those is that it's the least amount of road that parallels rivers or streams. Most of the road, it crosses in a perpendicular manner. And what we feel is that minimizes spill risks to the major waterways. The burnt log route also, we feel, has less interaction with recreational traffic on Johnson Creek and Stibnite Road, where there's, a high amount of recreation with razors and fishing and whatnot. Some of the other kind of design aspects is that there's less elevation loss, which is better for diesel fuel consumption and air emissions. It's got a lower construction cost, shorter construction window. For anybody that's been along Stibnite Road, and here's a picture of it from a couple years back where we had a pretty large scale avalanche take out several portions of Stibnite Road. You can see how much wood and debris and even snow is still there. And it took months to reconstruct this road. And so, you know, the burnt log route maintains a higher elevation consistently at the top of these avalanche chutes rather than at the bottom of them. Next slide, please, Shelley. So as far as operation and maintenance of the road, it should be around, you know, around 25 to 30 years. We're proposing right now, it should take about 2 to 2.5 years to build. You know, that's during the summer months, that is. So it's really reduced down to just a few months in the summer each year. But we anticipate having the bulk of the road done and built in 2 years. Might need a little bit of surfacing on that 3rd year. But we'll be using that, or we're proposing to use that for 12 to 15 years of operations, and then approximately another 5 years during mine closure and restoration. We're proposing during the summer months, dust suppression, and when we build the road, we'll build that into the roadway with binding agents. We're obviously need to maintain clean culverts. You know, we don't want sediment getting into any of the waterways. We'll be clearing the mudslides during the summer as they come, typically in spring runoff or breakup. And then we'll be resurfacing or reshaping the road on an annual basis as well. And then during summer months, of course, we will have some avalanche control. We have studied it. We know there are some avalanche paths, but we feel like we're above, really above most of them. But we will need to maintain the roadway throughout the winter. So we'll be, you know, mitigating the potential for avalanches. We'll be clearing snow on a daily basis and providing traction, obviously during the winter months. The question comes up Shelley, the question always comes up well, is the road going to be there forever? And currently under our plan is that those portions of the road that are pioneered, that are new, those will be, you know, demolished, taken out. The portions of the road that I didn't touch on, I apologize, is that where the road is being upgraded, you know, the current road width is approximately 8 to 14 feet wide. We're going to widen that to about 21 feet. So we'll need to bring that back to about 14 feet wide when we're done. Those portions of the road that exist already. All right, next slide. All right, public access. So when we first submitted the plan of restoration and operations, we had not identified or provided for public access through the mine site. And in scoping, we heard from some very vocal folks in Yellow Pine, I think specifically, that was not amenable. So we went back and we said, okay, is there a way that we can provide public access? You know, people that know this area well, people like to get up to Thunder Mountain, they like to get over to Cinnabar, and they want to be able to come through this area. In the figure that we have here, the red is the existing public road. For many of the people who know this area, the Yellow Pine pit, sort of the brown, that's going to take out or obliterate that current public access. So the purple is our proposal for public access during operations. It'll be about 14-foot wide road. I think grades won't exceed, I think 12%. And they'll allow, you know, horse trailers and that and such to be able to get up and around the project. Currently, we have kind of on the north lobe of the Yellow Pine pit, we'll be crossing the upper bench, crossing through the upper bench of the Yellow Pine pit. Yep, and that's an alternative. We have that in as alternative 2, I believe, in the draft EIS to provide access. Okay, so Switch gears a little bit on winter access, public access. Currently, the blue in this figure signifies plowed roads. It's the access for people to get basically from Cascade and into Yellow Pine, and then on to Stibnite Gold Project for us that are maintaining that yearly. The green areas are currently groomed trails by Valley County, and our access route that we're proposing will impact that portion between Warm Lake and Landmark. So what we have proposed is an alternative route, which is signified as the pink on this. For many of you, this is the Cabin Creek, Trout Creek Road. It follows the transmission line. We are proposing some upgrades to that road. We need it to when we build the transmission line, but we'll be adding a few culverts and bridges in there to improve access so that the groomer can maintain that route all winter. And you're probably wondering, well, how are you going to get back to Landmark and then on to, a lot of people still like to ride to Stanley area. So during construction, when we are using Johnson Creek Road, we're proposing a parallel road west of Johnson Creek. It'll be about 16 feet wide. It won't be a road. It'll be a winter groomed trail. So for two and a half, probably 2 winters, the trail will parallel Johnson Creek from the Trout Creek campground south to Landmark, and then will allow you to get back on, what is it? I think the Stanley Landmark Road. I think that's about it. Next slide. All right. Switching gears to the transmission line. So we years ago looked at different routes to provide power to Stibnite. There's an existing 69 kilovolt line coming out of the south, out of Emmett. Similarly, there's one coming out of Lake Fork. And so we needed to tie into either one of those and upgrade it from 69 kV up to 138 kV. So what we ultimately chose with the help of Idaho Power and others is to come out of the north from the Lake Fork substation. So 130 kilovolt power is provided to the Lake Fork substation currently. We will upgrade the line between Lake Fork to Cascade from 69 to 138, add a new switching station at Cascade, and then we'll upgrade the transmission line from Cascade all the way out to Johnson Creek and replace it, basically upgrade it from 69 to 138, and then build a new segment, about a 9-mile long segment from the new Johnson Creek substation into the Stibnite Gold Project. I think what we have in here is what's pretty important is that, the costs will be incurred by Perpetua, not Idaho Power. And and we also looked at so in the original plan of restoration operations, our proposal was just to follow the existing route. Through scoping and discussions with some of the landowners along the way, we were able to find a couple reroutes that were able to avoid, well, one was basically able to avoid wetlands, which is the railroad grade reroute that we have here. This is just north of Little Donner. If you're heading north from Cascade to McCall, it's the one hill that you go up and over, and then you drop to the north. Got the reservoir on the west. The existing route is the purple one. It goes right through a bunch of wetlands in a I think it's Bureau of Reclamation land. And so what we've just basically proposed is just to move it slightly to the north onto the existing or old railroad grade. And that way we avoid those wetlands. Next one. This second one is what we call the Pearsall bypass. So currently the transmission line is a combination of the red and purple. So what we're proposing to do is, instead of follow from where you see Cascade switching station south, and then east along Went Lane and then northeast through what's called Thunder Mountain Estates. We are proposing a more of a straight shot route, which is the hot, the hot green there. It'll follow Warm Lake Road, cross Warm Lake Road right at the old Crawford Ranger Station, and then follow the southern extent of the Boise National Forest and Idaho Department of Lands properties before meeting up with the existing transmission line just on the east side of the figure there. That way we heard from several people in the Thunder Mountain Estates that were concerned about the increased height and voltage and width potentially of the transmission line. And so we feel like we found a pretty good alternative to mitigate those concerns. Next slide. All right, offsite facilities. So I've talked a few times about the Stibnite Gold Logistics facility in Scott Valley. It's like I said, it's about 8 miles east of Cascade in Scott Valley. And the other one that I haven't really mentioned too much is the burnt log maintenance facility, which will be required to, it's quite a ways out there to maintain that road during the summer and winter months. So I'll show you a couple drawings of these of what we're proposing right now. Here's the Stibnite Gold Logistics facility on Warm Lake Road. Here's where we'll have our mine personnel parking in the south, bus parking a little bit closer to the north there. We'll also have an admin. That's where our admin, our laboratory will be there, our assay laboratory, our core sampling, logging, storage area, our warehouse, large laydown yard, and what I didn't touch on with the transmission lines, we will have a substation on the northern portion of this property. It will be replacing an existing substation that's in the valley that provides power to the 3 or 4 homes that are in the area. We're just going to move it to the north to our property and then do a underbuild back to those homes to the south. Next slide. So this is the burnt log maintenance facility. It's about 4.5 miles east of the Landmark and Johnson Creek, kind of the Warm Lake Road intersection there. We're proposing to put it in a what we're calling is a borrow source. So it's undisturbed land currently. It has material there that we'll use during construction. And then in that footprint, we'll put the maintenance facility in there. And there won't be a whole lot here. We'll have some small sleeping quarters for the few folks that are out there maintaining the road. There'll be a maintenance building, covered, equipment structure, some outdoor storage, a fuel station and generator, and then an aggregate storage building. That's it. Okay, so last slide here, I think, is, we had a 75-day comment period for the draft EIS. We've listened. We feel like we've addressed some of those already. But the highlights really were, they want to see improvements to Highway 55 and intersections. They want to see requests for, public commuter buses between towns. And there was some noise concerns at Warm Lake, and I might let Kyle talk to that here in a minute. And then also there's obviously concerns about maintenance of Warm Lake Road. So I feel like number one, we've really touched on is we feel like we're addressing those concerns and providing, the funds to improve those intersections to work safely for the public and our traffic. As far as public commuter buses, I can't really speak too much to that. I know there is, a desire to reduce the amount of traffic traveling to the logistics facility as much as possible. And I know there's conversations going on right now to provide and pick up people as far away as I think New Meadows and maybe even further to get them to the logistics facility so they don't have to drive their cars individually and then get them on to the site. As far as the Warm Lake upgrades and maintenance, we haven't submitted a proposal yet, but we're working on one. With Valley County, a maintenance agreement. We'll be, putting forth a maintenance agreement and working with them to get kind of nail down the particulars of that. but we understand that we'll have impacts to the road, and we'll be help to provide solutions to that as well. As far as the noise concerns, Kyle, I don't know if you can touch on those at all.
Yeah, Jordan, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. So the noise concerns, there was a number of concerns about semi trucks, especially as they come down the Warm Lake gradient using Jake brakes, because that is a very steep hill coming down. That traffic, if you've ever driven it or come down it with a camper or pulling a trailer, you're going 25, 20 miles an hour or less coming down that gradient. And the semis are using the Jake brakes to be able to do that. And if you've heard an unmuffled Jake brake, they can be quite loud. One of the things that we're going to require of all of our contract haulers is that contractually they will be required to have appropriate Jake brakes or muffled exhaust brakes on all of their vehicles hauling supplies for the project for us. So the other portion of it is sound attenuation by distance. The distance of that grade to the communities and the cabins and stuff around the lake is such that the sound of a properly muffled exhaust brake is such that it really gets down to background levels as they're coming down, and concentrating that truck traffic to the within that 8 to 5 window during the day versus the quiet evening and really early morning hours. It helps mitigate a lot of those concerns we feel.
Jordan, I know you touched on this a little bit, but can you maybe touch on it a tiny bit more on who exactly is going to be paying for the upgrades that you went over, all of the upgrades that you went over, and then the maintenance during operations?
So the upgrades are so specifically to Warm Lake Road, or are we talking about all upgrades in general?
Any and all of them.
So I'll touch on, let's say, for example, the intersection upgrades first of all. Warm Lake Road, we're proposing 100% of the upgrades. There's some discussions with the city of McCall that we're having on the Boydston and Dinehard intersections. What I showed you today is our proposals. It was, based on ITD's recommendations. Those were our proposals. Well, the city, as many of you know, has been working really with ITD potentially to swap Highway 55 from its current alignment through downtown to the bypass. And with that, they have a longer term look at how they would like those intersections to look. And so we're working with them to say, hey, yeah, well, what current proposals look is like, we know what our mitigation requirement would, or recommendation would look like and what would cost. We'd be willing to put that dollar amount towards what you foresee as being the improvements you would like to make. So those are still going. I think they're gonna cost more than what we've proposed, but we want to be a partner. As far as the transmission line, I think we've already established that we're paying for 100% of that. So that's pretty easy. The burnt log route, obviously, we'll be paying 100% of that. The Warm Lake one is the one we're still working on, and we really, like I said, we have not proposed anything to Valley County commissioners yet. It's on our to-do list, right, Kyle? So that is something we will be doing this year.
And that's specifically for the maintenance of Warm Lake Road. So what we envision that looking like is we'll be doing or proposing to do all of the winter maintenance on Warm Lake Road from Highway 55, basically out to the project site. And then as far as summer maintenance due to degradation of truck traffic, there's other entities that run larger trucks on that road. And this is the the details that we're still working through and preparing an agreement with Valley County, but it's a sharing of that maintenance costs aggregated out to proportional use.
Great, thank you, Jordan and Kyle. Appreciate it. As many of you guys know, this year has been a pretty big year for Perpetua Resources. We went through that 75-day comment period that Jordan hit on a couple different times. We successfully released our feasibility study and signed a historic agreement with the FDA to begin water cleanup, which we're pretty excited about on site. And if you were not aware, we did change our name from Midas Gold Idaho to Perpetua Resources. And we do have a lot more coming up in the next couple of years. And one of the big ways that we are really trying to make sure that you guys stay informed in everything that's happening with our project, all of the updates, and getting all of your questions answered is by doing these webinars. So we do them at least once a month, if not more than that. We try to take a technical dive into various different parts of our project to give you kind of more of that deep dive, less of the high level, to really get that information out there and in front of folks to get their questions answered or just to make them more informed. So I do hope that you guys join us again. Check out our website for the upcoming events and to sign up for more webinars. And thank you again, Jordan. Really appreciate your time today. And thank you, Kyle, for taking some time as well. I hope you guys all have a great day and we will talk to you soon.